Elias Ward never imagined his morning would end inside the throne room of the strongest empire in the galaxy. He had woken up on Earth like any normal day, thinking about simple problems, repair work, bills, and an old coffee machine that refused to function. But now he stood on a floor made of glowing crystal, surrounded by alien nobles, warriors, and scholars who stared at him as if he were some rare creature from an old legend. He had no idea how he got there. One moment he was leaving his workshop, and the next moment a bright blue portal swallowed him. When his sight returned, he was standing inside a massive hall filled with floating banners and shining golden pillars. Strange symbols glowed on every wall. The air smelled like a mixture of metal and sweet fruit. Everything felt unreal, and Elias wondered if he was dreaming. But the looks of shock and confusion around him felt too real to ignore. At the far end of the hall stood Queen Zavira of the Astral Dominion, the most powerful ruler in the known galaxy. She was tall, elegant, and strong in a way that made everyone around her look small. Her presence alone felt like a force of nature. Her long silver hair moved like flowing light, and her eyes glowed softly with the color of a distant star. Every alien in the hall kneeled before her, everyone except Elias, who simply stood frozen. A low whisper spread through the court. A human. They brought a human here? Impossible. They are extinct in this region. Why would the queen summon one? Elias swallowed hard. He wanted to explain that he had no idea what was happening, but his voice refused to come out. Queen Zavira slowly stepped down from her throne, each movement controlled and graceful. Her golden armor reflected the star-like lights around the room. Her eyes were calm, but there was something familiar in the way she looked at him. She stopped in front of him, close enough for him to feel the warmth of her presence. Her voice carried across the hall like a gentle but firm command. "This human," she said, "is my chosen husband." The hall erupted into chaos. Some nobles gasped loudly. Some dropped their scrolls. A few actually fainted. The royal guards, who had been standing like statues moments before, looked confused, unsure if they should protect the queen or arrest Elias. The scholars argued among themselves, flipping pages of thick books as if searching for ancient rules. He cannot be her husband. He is too small. He has no royal blood. He does not even have proper armor. Is this a test? A joke? A warning? Their voices blended into a storm of noise. Elias felt his heart pound wildly. Husband? Him? To her? He didn't even know her. Or had he? A memory flashed in his mind. Years ago, he had been part of a rescue mission in a collapsing mining station on a distant moon. He had found a group of alien children trapped under broken steel. He worked until his hands bled to lift beams and clear a path. He saved them all, including a quiet girl with silver hair who had thanked him with glowing eyes. He now realized that girl was Queen Zavira, but he had never imagined she remembered him, let alone brought him across half the galaxy. Elias finally found his voice. "Your Majesty, I think there is a mistake." But Queen Zavira turned slightly, raising her hand. The entire hall fell silent instantly. "There is no mistake," she said with steady confidence. "I have made my decision." She stepped closer to Elias, her expression softening for a brief moment. A moment only he could see. She spoke quietly, her voice warm. "I have not forgotten the day you saved my life." Elias blinked, surprised. That was years ago. Anyone would have done the same. "No," she replied. "The others ran. You stayed. You protected us without expecting anything. That is why I chose you." Before Elias could respond, a noble stepped forward. He was tall, with blue skin and sharp golden armor. He bowed stiffly. "Your Majesty," with respect. "Choosing a human breaks every tradition. The court must approve any royal union." Queen Zavira's eyes narrowed slightly. "The court advises. I decide." The noble hesitated. The room grew cold. Elias felt the pressure too. He didn't want to cause trouble. He didn't want the court to hate him for something he never asked for. He took a slow breath. "Your Majesty, maybe we should talk about this." But before he could finish, a burst of golden energy filled the room. A symbol of royal authority appeared above the queen's hand, an ancient sign that meant her word was final. "I have chosen him," she said, "and no one will challenge it." The court bowed, though many still looked shocked and confused. Elias felt dozens of eyes on him. Some were curious. Some were jealous. Some were angry. A few looked genuinely afraid. Queen Zavira placed her hand gently behind his back, guiding him toward the steps of the throne. Her touch was light but strong, like she was shielding him from the storm of emotions in the room. "Come," she said softly. "You do not need to fear them." Elias walked beside her, still unsure what was happening, still overwhelmed by everything. He didn't feel like a hero or a chosen mate. He felt like a normal human pulled into a world too big for him. When they reached the throne platform, Zavira spoke again, her voice calm and firm. "Today marks a new chapter for the Astral Dominion. A union of heart, courage, and unexpected destiny." The court members bowed again, though many still whispered among themselves. Elias could hear fragments. "Why a human? He looks weak. Maybe the queen sees something we don't. Maybe this will change everything." Elias stood tall, even though his legs shook slightly. Queen Zavira noticed and leaned a little closer, speaking quietly so only he heard. "You are safe here," she said. "I will not let anyone harm you." Her tone held reassurance, but also a strange warmth he could not explain. As the hall slowly returned to order, Elias realized something important. His old life was gone. Earth, his workshop, his quiet days, everything had changed in a single moment. He had been pulled into a galaxy where aliens debated his existence, and a queen claimed him as her chosen companion. He didn't know what the future held. He didn't know if the court would accept him, or if danger would come because of this decision. But one thing was certain. His life was no longer simple, and the entire galaxy had already begun whispering about the human who stood beside the most powerful queen in the stars. Elias took a slow breath, standing beside her as the court watched. A new journey had started, one he never asked for, but one he could not escape. And this was only the beginning. Elias woke the next morning inside a room larger than any house he had ever lived in on Earth. The walls glowed with soft blue lights, moving like gentle waves. A wide window showed a view of floating islands and starships passing through the sky. It was beautiful, but he felt out of place. He sat on the large bed, trying to understand everything that happened yesterday. One moment, he was repairing a broken engine on Earth. The next, he was declared the husband of the most powerful queen in the galaxy. His heart was still struggling to accept it. He stood up and walked to the window. Aliens of many shapes moved around outside, flying on hoverpaths, carrying scrolls, or riding strange animals. Everyone here belonged to a royal world. Everyone except him. A soft knock came at his door. "Sir Elias," a calm, robotic voice said. "May I enter?" "May I enter?" "Yes," Elias answered quietly. A metal servant shaped like a floating sphere entered the room. It held a tray of glowing blue fruit and steaming cups. "I am Unit R-17, it said. "Her Majesty requested that you eat well. Today will be important." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Why? What's happening today?" The sphere beeped softly. "You will meet the royal court again. They have asked to evaluate you." Elias frowned. "Evaluate me for what?" "For your future position beside the queen," the servant replied. "Some members of the court still doubt Her Majesty's decision. They will test your judgment, your courage, and your character." Elias sighed. He had expected resistance, but he didn't think the court would test him like a trainee. Still, he knew he couldn't hide. He had to face whatever they prepared. He ate a little, got dressed in simple clothes the robot provided, and followed R-17 through long hallways filled with guards and advisors. Everyone stared at him as he passed. Some whispered, some pointed. Some simply watched him with suspicious eyes. Elias walked quietly, keeping his thoughts steady. He wasn't a warrior, a prince, or a noble. But he had survived many challenges in life. Dangerous repairs, falling machinery, collapsing mines. Maybe those experiences could help him here. They reached the entrance to a large circular chamber. R-17 stopped. Your test begins inside. Her Majesty will watch but will not interfere. Elias nodded, took a deep breath, and stepped inside. The chamber was filled with members of the royal court. They sat in curved rows rising upward like a theater. Bright lights focused on the center, where a single chair waited. Queen Zavira sat on her throne above the court, her expression calm but unreadable. When their eyes met, she gave him a small, reassuring nod. A warm sense of courage filled him. The High Advisor, a tall alien with blue crystal skin, stepped forward. "Human Elias Ward," he announced. "You have been chosen by Her Majesty. But the court requires proof that you are worthy. You will face tests of mind, test of heart, and test of judgment." Elias sat on the chair, hands steady, even though his stomach twisted with nerves. The first noble stood up. She wore long purple robes decorated with stars. "Test 1, understanding," she said. "We will ask 3 questions about our culture. A partner of the Queen must understand the world he will live in." "Understand of the Queen." "To understand of the Queen." She lifted a glowing tablet. Question 1. Why does the astral dominion value wisdom above strength? Elias thought for a moment. He remembered seeing murals in the hall, images of old wars and disasters. "Because strength can break things," Elias said slowly. "But wisdom prevents the need to fight in the first place." The noble blinked, surprised. Many others nodded quietly. "Correct," she said. Question 2. What is the Queen's greatest duty? "That one is easy," Elias replied. "To protect her people." The noble hesitated. "That is correct." Question 3. What is the role of the royal court? Elias smiled slightly. "To give advice," he said. "But not to control the Queen." Almost everyone turned their heads toward Queen Zavira. She tried to look serious, but a faint smile touched her lips. The noble bowed. Test 1. Passed. Next, a warrior in dark armor stepped forward. He towered over Elias like a living mountain. Test 2. Courage. Elias swallowed. He knew this one would be difficult. The warrior pressed a button on his wrist. The floor around the chair shimmered and changed into a holographic battlefield. An illusion of fire, falling rocks, and loud explosions filled the chamber. It looked real enough to make Elias flinch. The warrior spoke. "Your task is simple. Walk through the simulation and reach the other side." Elias stood slowly. The ground shook under him, but he reminded himself it wasn't real. Still, his heart pounded as he stepped through falling flames and past enormous holographic creatures. The simulation tested his nerves, not his strength. At one point, a beam fell across the path. Elias did not run away. Instead, he inspected the beam, found a weak joint, and used a metal shard on the ground to loosen it enough to push aside. The warrior watched in silence, surprised. Elias continued, even as the simulation grew louder and more chaotic. But he kept moving. He had survived real disasters before this illusion would not stop him. Finally, he reached the end. The battlefield faded, and the warrior bowed his head. "You did not panic," he said. "You did not freeze. Courage does not mean fighting. It means moving forward when your body tells you to stop." Test 2. Passed. Several court members whispered among themselves, impressed. The final test came from the High Advisor himself. Test 3. Judgment, he said. "We will present a difficult situation. Your answer will show your character." Quote, a hologram appeared, showing 2 groups stranded on a damaged space platform. One group was small but contained high-ranking nobles. The other group was larger but held ordinary citizens. "You can only save one group," the High Advisor said. "Which do you choose?" "One, that." The court watched him closely. This was a classic political trap. Elias took a deep breath. "I save the larger group," he said firmly. "More lives matter. And if the nobles are truly noble, they would want their people saved before themselves." The entire room went silent. The High Advisor stared at him, stunned. Slowly, he bowed. That is the correct answer, he said quietly. Queen Xavira's eyes glowed with pride. The tests were complete. Elias expected applause or cheers, but the court stayed silent, shocked by how calmly he handled every challenge. Some alien nobles looked troubled, as if their opinions of him were changing in ways they didn't expect. Queen Xavira finally stood. You have seen what I already knew, she said. Elias does not need royal blood to be worthy. His mind is steady. His courage is real. His judgment is wise. She descended from her throne and walked toward him. The nobles bowed as she passed. When she reached Elias, she spoke gently. You did well. Thank you, he replied, still catching his breath. The High Advisor stepped forward again. The court accepts your capability, he announced. But you must understand some members still doubt. They may challenge you in other ways. That, Elias nodded. That's fine. I didn't come here to pretend. I'll face whatever comes. Queen Xavira smiled softly. You have already changed more minds than you think. As they left the chamber, Elias felt lighter. He had stepped into a hostile environment, but he had not been crushed by it. Somehow, he passed tests meant to break his confidence. But deep in his heart, he sensed something else, something darker. If the court needed tests to accept him, then someone must still be planning to oppose him, and soon, that hidden enemy would reveal itself. Elias stood on the balcony of the royal palace, looking out at the glowing sky of the astral dominion. Floating starships drifted past like silent guardians. The air carried a soft hum, as if the entire world breathed with hidden energy. It was beautiful, but Elias couldn't enjoy it. Something heavy sat in his mind. The tests from the court were finished, but the atmosphere inside the palace had not become peaceful. Some nobles now respected him, but others whispered even louder. Elias could feel tension in every hallway, like the palace itself waited for something to happen. Queen Xavira walked quietly onto the balcony beside him. Her silver hair caught the morning light, making her look even more regal. She did not wear armor today, only a simple, flowing robe. But even without armor, she looked powerful. You are troubled, she said softly. Elias nodded. The tests are over, but the court still seems divided. Some accept me now, but others don't. Xavira folded her hands behind her back. Change is difficult for many. They fear what they do not understand. Is it really fear? Elias asked. Or is it anger? The queen turned her eyes toward the horizon. Both. But there is something more dangerous than fear or anger. After actor, Elias frowned. What? Ambition, she said quietly. Before he could ask more, a messenger arrived, a small floating cube with glowing patterns. Your Majesty, it beeped. The High Advisor requests your presence in the Hall of Stars. It is urgent. Xavira nodded. We're coming. The cube floated away. She looked at Elias. Stay close. They walked through long, winding hallways filled with guards and advisors. Elias noticed something unusual. The guards today looked tense, more alert than usual. Their hands stayed close to their weapons. Their eyes scanned every corner. Something was wrong. When they entered the Hall of Stars, the High Advisor rushed to them, carrying a glowing sphere filled with rapidly shifting symbols. Your Majesty, he said in a trembling voice. We received a coded warning. A hidden faction inside the court is planning a strike. Soon. Elias felt his stomach drop. A strike on who? The High Advisor looked at him directly. On the Queen. And possibly on you. Xavira's expression remained calm, but Elias could sense a shift in her energy. Her presence suddenly felt sharper, like a blade hidden behind soft cloth. Do we know who is behind this? She asked. We do not, the High Advisor said. The message was anonymous. But we believe the faction grew stronger after your announcement. Elias clenched his fists. He didn't care about being liked, but he hated the idea that Xavira was in danger because of him. We will increase security, the advisor continued. But please, Your Majesty, cancel tonight's ceremony. Xavira shook her head immediately. No. Canceling it will show fear. They will take it as weakness. Elias looked at her with concern. But they might attack during the ceremony. They might, she agreed calmly. That is why I will be ready. Elias felt worry twist inside him, but arguing with her was impossible. The queen never backed down once she made a decision. That evening, the palace prepared for the grand ceremony, a diplomatic event where ambassadors from multiple worlds came to welcome the queen's chosen partner. Elias wished the ceremony didn't exist, but he had no choice. Canceling it would challenge the queen's authority and give power to her enemies. He wore formal clothes prepared by palace servants. A simple but elegant dark blue robe with silver lines. It felt strange on him, but at least it was comfortable. When he entered the hall, it was already filled with musicians, floating lights, and long tables decorated with shimmering flowers. Alien nobles stood in groups, whispering and watching him. Some bowed politely. Some looked at him with irritation. Queen Zavira arrived soon after, dressed in ceremonial armor glowing like a rising sun. She stood beside him, steady and calm. Whatever happens tonight, she whispered. Stay close to me. Elias nodded. For the first hour, everything appeared peaceful. There were speeches from ambassadors, formal greetings, and music that sounded like gentle bells in the air. Elias listened to stories of distant planets and shifting alliances. But his mind stayed alert. He watched shadows. He studied movement. Something felt off. Then, during a moment of silence before the queen's speech, the lights flickered. A cold wind swept through the hall. Elias felt the hair on his arms rise. Queen Zavira's eyes sharpened instantly. She sensed it too. Suddenly, several guards collapsed without warning. A strange humming sound echoed through the hall. A blue flash burst from the ceiling, and a group of masked figures dropped down, like shadows coming alive. Panic erupted. Guests screamed and rushed away. Tables flipped. Glowing lights shattered. The masked attackers formed a circle around the queen and Elias. Their weapons hummed with sharp energy. One attacker stepped forward, his voice cold and distorted. "Your Majesty," he said, "your rule ends today. The galaxy cannot follow a queen who chooses a human." Zavira lifted her chin, not afraid. "You dare challenge your own throne? You broke tradition," the attacker said. "You weakened the empire. A human cannot stand beside our queen." Elias stepped in front of Zavira without thinking. His heart pounded, but he refused to move aside. "Then your real problem is with me," he said. The attacker laughed. "Yes, and we will fix that mistake." Before they could fire, Elias grabbed a fallen guard's shield device. He slammed his hand on the activation panel. A glowing barrier expanded around him and the queen, stopping the first energy blasts. "Move," Zavira commanded. Elias guided her behind a fallen pillar, using the shield to block more shots. The attacker's blasts cracked the floor, but he kept moving. Zavira fought back too. She raised her hand, and a burst of golden energy knocked two attackers across the hall. Even during chaos, her movements were graceful, dangerous, and beautiful. But more attackers appeared from the shadows. Elias noticed something others missed. The attackers used signals, small hand gestures to coordinate. He studied them quickly, his engineering mind working fast. "They're targeting the power conduits," he shouted to Zavira. "If they break the main one, the shield systems will fail." Zavira nodded. "Can you stop them?" "Maybe," Elias said. "I'll try." He ran toward a large energy pillar on the side of the hall. The attackers fired at him, but Zavira blocked their shots, moving with fierce precision. Elias reached the conduit, opened the access panel, and rewired the connections with quick hands. Sparks flew, but he didn't stop. He rerouted the energy, sending it into a backup system connected to the shield grid. The palace lights returned suddenly. The floor vibrated with new power. The attackers hesitated, confused. Zavira seized the moment. She lifted her hand, creating a shockwave of golden force that disarmed the attackers and sent them crashing to the ground. Guards rushed in from every side, capturing the masked rebels. Silence slowly filled the hall. Elias leaned against the wall, breathing hard. His legs shook from the fear he tried to hide. But he was alive. Zavira was alive. And the attack had failed. Queen Zavira walked to him, her face soft with gratitude. "You saved my life again," she said quietly. "You saved me too," he replied with a tired smile. The court, nobles, and guests stared at him not with doubt, but with disbelief and newfound respect. The High Advisor approached, bowing deeply. "Human Elias Ward," he said. "Tonight you proved your courage is not an accident. You protected the Queen with no armor, no training, and no hesitation." Elias looked around at the ruin of the hall. But who were they? Why attack now? The advisor's face darkened. "Because the real enemy has not shown itself yet. This was only the beginning." Queen Zavira placed a hand on Elias's shoulder. "And we will face the next threat together." Elias nodded, though a cold fear crept into his chest. If this was only the beginning, then the future would be far more dangerous than they imagined. The palace was repaired within days, but its peaceful glow no longer felt the same. Elias could sense tension spreading through every corridor. Guards stood taller, weapons charged, advisors whispered in closed rooms. The court members avoided meeting each other's eyes. Even the floating lights that decorated the hallways flickered more often, as if the entire palace sensed a storm waiting to break. The attack from the masked rebels had shaken everyone. It proved that danger did not come only from outside the empire. It also grew quietly inside, hidden in shadows and fear. But the true threat had not arrived yet. Elias learned this when Queen Zavira called him into the war chamber, a room he had never seen before. Its walls were black stone, filled with star maps and drifting holograms of planets. In the center of the room floated a huge sphere glowing red. Zavira stood beside it, her armor shimmering faintly under the cold lights. Generals, commanders, and advisors surrounded her with grave expressions. Elias approached slowly. "What's happening?" Zavira pointed at the red sphere. "This is the Machine Empire." Elias frowned. "Machine Empire?" The High Advisor stepped forward, his crystal skin reflecting the dim light. "A threat older than our galaxy. They were silent for thousands of years. Now they are awake again." The sphere shifted, showing images of metal fleets, massive ships shaped like sharp blades, glowing with cold blue energy. They looked endless, like a swarm of steel stars. "They consume worlds," Zavira said quietly. "They do not negotiate. They do not show mercy. They see all living beings as a mistake that must be erased." Elias felt a chill sweep through him. "How long before they reach your empire?" 2 weeks. A general answered. "Maybe less." The room grew silent. Elias stared at the hologram. "Why are they attacking now?" "Because they detected weakness," Zavira replied. "The masked rebels who attacked us, they were only a distraction. Someone helped the machines awaken." Elias's eyes widened. "A traitor?" "Yes," she said softly. "Someone inside the empire wants my rule to fall." He felt anger build inside him. All this happened because of jealousy and fear. Someone hated the idea of a human standing beside the Queen so much that they risked the entire galaxy. Queen Zavira placed her hand on the hologram controls. The image changed to a map of the astral dominion, her territory. Bright blue lines showed their fleet positions. Red lines showed the incoming Machine Empire routes. "Our forces are strong," she said, "but not strong enough to defeat them in a simple battle. We need a new strategy." The generals argued immediately. "We must attack first." "No, we must defend the capital. We need more ships. We should hide the Queen." The room turned into chaos. Zavira looked at Elias. "What do you think?" He blinked. "Me? I'm not a general. You are something better," she said. "You think differently." Everyone stared at him. Elias felt nervous, but he forced himself to look at the map again. His mind raced, searching patterns, connections, weaknesses. "The machines think in perfect logic, right?" he asked. "Yes," the advisor said. "Their tactics are predictable, but overwhelming." Elias nodded slowly. "Then we beat them with something they can't predict." The generals frowned, confused. "What do you propose, human?" one asked. Elias stepped closer to the map. "We don't fight where they expect. We show them a pattern, then break it suddenly. They won't understand a choice that looks illogical." Zavira's eyes lit with understanding. "Unpredictability." "Exactly," Elias said. "Humans survived by making unexpected decisions. It's our strength. Machines can't handle chaos." He began explaining his plan. It wasn't perfect, but it was clever. Fake weak points in the Empire's border, hidden traps around empty regions of space, decoy ships, sending false signals, sudden surprise strikes from invisible positions. The generals stared at the map as he moved the icons around. Slowly, their expressions changed from doubt to interest to respect. "This," the High Advisor whispered, "this might actually work." Queen Zavira placed her hand on Elias's shoulder. "You may have just saved us." The next days were filled with preparation. Fleets moved silently to new positions. Pilots memorized unusual routes. Engineers set up energy traps inside asteroid fields. Elias worked beside Zavira every day. He helped design the confusion tactics that would mislead the machines. Zavira commanded the fleets with calm authority. Together, they formed a strange but powerful partnership, logic mixed with instinct, tradition mixed with unpredictability. Finally, the day arrived. The machine empire entered the astral dominion. Alarms echoed across every world. Fleets launched into space. The sky filled with glowing trails of energy. Elias stood beside the Queen on the command deck of the flagship. The ship was massive, with thousands of crew members working under her orders. "Enemy fleet approaching," a pilot announced. 1,000,000 units strong. Elias felt his chest tighten. No human had ever seen such a large force. Zavira's voice remained steady. "Begin Phase 1. The Astral Dominion fleet moved according to Elias's plan. They made small, confusing attacks that appeared weak or random. The machines adjusted their formation every few seconds, trying to calculate the human strategy. But humans didn't have a single strategy. They had chaos. The machine fleet advanced in a straight line, following perfect logic. But Elias used decoy beacons to make empty regions of space look like military bases. The machines shifted direction, right into an asteroid field rigged with explosive traps. The explosion was massive, shaking space itself. "Direct hit!" a commander shouted. They didn't expect it. The machine empire lost thousands of ships in seconds. Phase 2 began. The Astral Dominion ships appeared to retreat but suddenly jumped behind the machines, surrounding them. Phase 3. Hidden energy nets activated, capturing their largest ships. Phase 4. Zavira personally led a charge that broke the enemy's central command ship. Within an hour, the machines faltered. Their perfect calculations failed. Their formation broke. Their fleet panicked, and emotion machines were never meant to feel. "They're retreating!" a pilot yelled. "They're leaving the system!" Cheers erupted across the flagship. The machine empire, an ancient, unstoppable force, was defeated by a plan created by a human engineer. Elias exhaled shakily. His hands trembled from relief. Queen Zavira turned to him with a warm smile. "You did this," she said. He shook his head. "No. We did it together." The crew bowed to Elias. The entire ship echoed with cheers. Within hours, news spread across the empire. The Queen's human husband had helped save the galaxy. When they returned to the palace, the court gathered to greet them. This time, they didn't whisper. They didn't hide their doubts. Instead, they bowed deeply with respect. The High Advisor stepped forward. "Human Elias Ward," he said loudly. "You have shown courage, wisdom, and loyalty. You have united species that have never worked together before. The court accepts you fully." Elias felt embarrassed, but grateful. Queen Zavira stood beside him, proud. "I chose him not for his power," she said, "but for his heart. And today, you all saw why." Elias looked at her, surprised by the warmth in her voice. After the court left, They walked together on the balcony, the same place where part 2 began. The sky glowed with bright stars. "You're not just my chosen partner," Zavira said softly. "You're someone I trust. Someone who changed my empire." Elias smiled faintly. "I never wanted to be a hero. I just didn't want to let you down." "You never will," she replied. They stood quietly under the stars, side by side, no longer queen and outsider, but two allies who saved a galaxy together. And for the first time since arriving in this strange new world, Elias felt something warm and certain. He was home,